All right, so here we go. So here's my different decks that I got. I got about 25 different decks. Three of them are pretty trash, and one of them I can't really recommend, which is my alien deck. I can't recommend this deck only because I really haven't played it much. Because I just don't have all the ultra rares in my extra deck to basically play this deck the way that I think it should play. But I have all the other cards, so I've played it like this, and it plays okay. But um, there's just a few other cards I just still haven't had yet, so I hadn't been able to play it. Elvish is pretty stupid in this deck, but I just like putting it out there. It's pretty fun to play. It's pretty annoying to deal with as well. And then some of the decks that are pretty trash that I really don't recommend that you build is the Time Lords. Pretty fun to play at times. If people don't have ways to deal with these Time Lords, and then also Waking the Dragon, Magic Cylinder, and Trap Tricks, uh, all kind of and magical cylinders as well, all kind of have ways of just punishing people for not like dealing with the back row, and then you can just keep removing stuff off your opponent's field using these cards, keep damaging them and just annoying them with Time Lords. Pretty easy to lose to like an imperm or something with that deck though. So yeah. Then the other deck that's not all that good, my Destiny board deck. This deck is all about stalling your opponents out, but it doesn't really have any like major negates, and it doesn't really have a way to deal with any major negates. So this deck pretty much just loses to somebody just removing all of your back row. The only real negates it has is like Solemn Judgment. So yeah, main win condition for this deck is Cursed Necrofear, Dark Necrofear, as well as the Destiny board win condition. So yeah. All right, and then the last and final deck that's not really all that good. It's kind of fun to play when you finally summon Exodia, but I think the Treasure Panda Exodia deck is a lot better. I don't have a Treasure Panda Exodia deck, but this is pretty much my Exodia deck. Just the one that just draws all the cards in the deck using Royal Magic Library to get all the pieces of Exodia into your hand through the spell counters. Alright, so let's start with the other decks. And if you want to get these deck lists, just pause the video, screenshot, and then just kind of look through the cards. I'll just explain the win conditions for each of these decks. This deck here, just Eternal Souls, Dark Magical Circle, and Dark Magician. Just banish a bunch of cards, summon DP as well. That's the main win conditions for this deck. Then my Egyptian God deck is just all about summoning the three Egyptian gods. The main one you'll be summoning is Winged Dragon of Ra. A bunch of different ways to bring it out using like Ancient Chant, uh, Millennium Revelation, Dark Spell Regeneration, Mounted the Bound Creator, as well as like the Egyptian God Slime. So just a bunch of ways to search Egyptian God cards, and then just kind of easy ways to summon them out. Uh, Ways to protect them with Mounted Bound Creator. Ways to just make them really good with like infinite cards. Um, if you've seen the anime, this card is like one of the cards that they use to make Slifer like really OP. Especially if you have this card on the field and your opponent just let's just say your opponent just starts summoning like crazy and you max seed them. Well, you can use infinite cards to just keep all those cards in your hand on any additional turns, and it'll just make Slifer really OP. So yeah. Then we got our Phantasm deck. This deck right here just sets up a bunch of pops, negates, Waking the Dragon if they try to destroy your back row, which is already pretty difficult because you're going to be using a Sea Stealth attack, as well as the Pacifist card right here, which just summons a bunch of um, tokens. These tokens will basically like make it hard for your opponents to do anything about. They can't really attack into the token if you have Sea Stealth attack on the field because this card will activate and cause them to it'll pop whatever they attack into it with, using Sea Stealth attack, and then you can use Sea Stealth attack to actually protect Pacifists by, like, whenever they activate an effect, you then activate Sea Stealth attack. It'll pop the token, and once you pop the token, you'll summon another token out because they activated an effect. So it kind of loops, and so they kind of protect each other, and it makes it hard for your opponents to attack into them. And then you can just basically activate a bunch of different cards, these normal spiral dragons, and then you can equip a bunch of other cards to those to just attack for game. It's pretty good deck for that. And if they just continuously try to find a way to destroy your back row, you can use Waken the Dragon to summon out some floodgate or crazy monster that is hard for your opponents to deal with as well. Pretty good deck, fun deck to play. Sometimes it's hard to get it set up because you have to have very specific cards, but when you do play, it's pretty fun. That's what the Planet Pathfinders for getting to Pacifics as well as terraforming. Um, yeah, pretty fun deck to play. Also, if you have Metaverse, it's a pretty good card to play in this deck as well because as long as Pacifics is on the field, um, you pretty much gain the effect. So yeah, Numeron, just pretty much a generic going second Numeron deck. Um, very self-explanatory. Um, just Numeron, attack, 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 attack. Use the effects, OTK your opponent. Um, yeah, Ritual Dark Magician, a little different from my other Dark Magician deck. This deck's main goal is to summon out a bunch of boss monsters as well as Magician of Chaos, and then it just wreaks havoc. Um, it's really strong deck for going first, and sometimes if you're going second, if you just want to OTK your opponents, pretty good for going second as well. You just need a way to clear your opponent's board, which I use cards like Super Poly um, to just clear my opponent's board, do whatever I need to do. Then we got our Blue Eyes deck right here. Good thing about this deck right here, Blue Eyes Chaos Max, pretty much attacking to your opponents after setting up this crazy OP first turn board or even second turn board and kill them with Chaos Max, or first turn board with Borload, Savage Dragon, Baron de Floor, all kind of negates that you can kind of set up. So yeah, pretty strong deck. Um, it's got some powerful cards in here for pretty good engines. So yeah, and it's also just plays Blue Eyes really well. There's a lot of cards in here that just play Blue Eyes if you don't want to play the Chaos Max way or if they banish it or something. Then we got a pretty degenerate Elvish deck right here. I don't see a lot of people play Elvish the way that this Elvish deck is set up. This one is Elvish DPE, and then it also has Waking the Dragon. So if they're trying to out skill drain with a Lightning Storm or something like that, you can just bring out some super degenerate monster that's even harder for them to deal with than Eldritch. So yeah. Then we got our Mutants. This deck pretty much plays through banishes, graveyard, everything. This deck can do pretty much anything. It's not really affected by anything. Um, Ultimus, Synthesis, and then some of your three monsters like Mutant Beast, Mist, Arsenal. This deck is pretty much just like a crazy floodgate. Nemesis Corridor brings out Thunder Dragon Colossus. Just Vanity's Emptiness stops them from being able to special summon, as well as it banishes everything they try to send to the graveyard. So just a ton of floodgates. And like I said before, if cards get banished with this deck, you can play a lot of the cards you can actually play from your banish pile. So it's pretty good deck. You can special summon monsters that are from like banished pretty much. Um, so pretty good deck. Then we got our Sword Soul Tinny, pretty generic. There's only with a few exceptions. Like I don't have as many Tenyis in here. I got more Sword Soul cards, um, a little bit less Tenyis, more cards like Iris Sword Soul, and just pretty much my way of being able to just play Sword Soul. This is the best way that it plays for me. I get the most wins with it like this. Um, I feel like sometimes when I put too many Tenyis in here, I start breaking with the deck a little bit. So uh, just kind of keep it like this, and I think it plays the best for me like this. My Genzo deck, much different than any other Genzo deck that I've saw before. Um, Basically, the goal is to set up Herald of Arclight, Borlo, Savage Dragon, Baron de Flor, all on the field at the same time. As well as sometimes I can get DPE out and Genzo on the field all at the same time. When you get all five of those monsters out, pretty much sometimes you can do it in the first turn because um, the three Omni Negates are pretty much just a one card engine. Once you finish with that, if you got Fusion Destiny in your hand, you can also bring out um, Genzo, and then you can also bring out, I mean, not Genzo, DPE, and then you can bring out Genzo with the Genzo engine that we have here, especially if you got Royal Decree or if your opponents have already placed some trap cards or whatever. So, yeah, pretty OP way to play this deck. And you can protect your Genzo with heavy metal raiders. You can give it all kind of crazy attack with gravity blaster. You can pull cards from your opponent's side of the field using some of the Genzo cards. Um, pretty good deck. So yeah, this deck right here is basically the same as like the Genzo with just a more consistent way to summon out those three Omni Negates. Um, and then you're also using the Adventure Engine. So yeah, this deck can go first or second, and it does both like really well. So it's just a synchro deck that's just designed to just set up a bunch of negates and just pretty much win like that. Then we got relinquished. All right, so my relinquished deck pretty much just um, has two main win conditions, or really three: either Thousand Eyes Restrict, Millennium Eyes Restrict, and then DPE. And then the other one is pretty much just Quintet Magician. So Quintet Magician can be set up in one turn with this deck. Uh, if you can get three spell cards into the graveyard, I got a video on how you can just link climb using one card with this deck to go all the way into Quintet. This card can't be, um, it can't be destroyed by like card effects. It can't be beat by like tributing it, so they have to pretty much attack over this card. And if you got relinquished on the field while you got this card on the field, then they pretty much like you can shut down their plays. You can take their monsters and all kind of crazy stuff while they're trying to like link climb or whatever with relinquished. So yeah, pretty good cards. Also, Dark Renewal will allow you to bring out Illusionist, Faceless Magician, so you can then start looping uh, your Thousand Eyes Restrict or Millennium Eyes Restrict. So it's pretty degenerate as well. Pretty fun deck to play. Arm Dragon Thunder. This deck right here can go first and second. It's good at both. If you go first turn, you can pretty much set up an infinite negate, once per chain infinite negate, using um, the Samorge, Mist Valley Apex Avian, and Mist Valley Thunderbird. It's pretty cool. Going second, you can pretty much just play the Armed Dragon engine. Even if you go first and you don't want to set up the Infinite Negate, you can still just play the Armed Dragon Thunder engine. This deck right here is just to troll people. Um, it's basically just like a Numeron deck, but without the Numeron engine in it. You basically just kaijuing your opponents and then just making crooked cook and just frustrating your opponents, setting back row and hoping they destroy it, using a remove brainwashing to just bring the cards that you kaiju back onto your side of the field. Just a way to just annoy your opponents. I should probably also add into this deck skill drain just to make it even more annoying for my opponents. But yeah, pretty fun way to just annoy people using this deck. I already went through Exodia, so I don't even have to show this one. Flowander. This is probably one of my top three decks of all of them. Flowander. Some of my more recent gameplays, you'll see me kind of like playing this deck. I got Macrocosmos and Vanity's Emptiness in this one. I also have Harpy's Featherstorm, Gold Sarcophagus, few cards that some people don't really run. Um, but I think this deck is like probably one of my most powerful decks. Kind of fun to play. I know a lot of people hate this deck. Most people quit the second they see Robina. Some of them quit the second they see the map, but some of them quit the second they see Dimension Shifter. So just sometimes it's honestly hard to win this game by actually just winning the game because most people just quit. So I win more games by surrender or like timeout than actually like attacking and getting their life points to zero. So sometimes people will quit after they try to play through Harpy's Featherstorm. Some people don't even realize that they can't like use monster effects, and it's almost like they're trying to figure out why they're getting negated through their turn, and then they figure it out over time, like, and then they just scoop. So sometimes it's actually hard to just attack and win for game with this deck. Um, it's pretty fun, pretty degenerate, but whatever. Adventure Prank Kids. This is also another one of my top three decks. Um, I don't know which one is better out of this one, Flowanderees. I think Flowanderees is sometimes harder for people to deal with in this deck, but this one set up some crazy negates and board wipes that people just can't seem to deal with. Um, Main win condition for this deck is Battle Butler and Rip Roaring Roaster. Um, Sometimes Totally Awesome as well, and then the Adventure Engine. So the Adventure Engine just helps this deck one turn kill. So yeah. Then I got my Legendary Fisherman. Now this Legendary Fisherman deck much different than anybody else's Legendary Fisherman deck that I've saw so far. Has a bunch of different like ways to play. Basically, in one turn, if you summon Deep Sea Diva, you can bring out another card, go into Hawk, and then once you do that, you can set up Borlo Savage Dragon. You can also set up Baron DeFleur, and you can set up Herald of Arclight. You can have all three of those out onto the field, and then you can bring out Legendary Fisherman right after that. Um, so you can just set up a really hard to deal with board because it's hard to out Legendary Fisherman already, especially if you got three negates on the field at the same time. Yeah, and then you can also bring out Toad, um, just making it really difficult for your opponents to do anything about this deck. You bring out Toad through Bahamut Shark, and an easy way to kind of search the Legendary Fisherman cards. Foolish Burial Goods, send Ice Barrier to the graveyard, and then from there you can send any level 5 water monster from the deck to the graveyard and then add that card to your hand. So you can basically search for your Legendary Fisherman directly from your deck using Ice Barrier or Foolish Burial Goods. So pretty powerful way to kind of play this deck. This deck can one turn kill, it can go first, it can go second. Going second, you can pretty much wipe your opponent's field with Legendary Fisherman. Going first, you can do whatever. It's a pretty powerful deck. So yeah, this deck is another going second deck. You can go first with this one too, but it's better going second because if they negate these cards when you try to go first, um, a lot of the times they'll just OTK you. So yeah, um, you could also go first maxi when they go to play, and then Nibiru them if they try to play a bunch of negates. Because usually when people try to build like a crazy negate board, if you Nibiru them, it'll stop that negate and they won't have another negate. Sometimes if they can continue to play through that, if you got two of these in your hand, then you can just use both of them. They'll negate both of them, and you can pretty much end their turn, kaiju them, and then go into the Inferno Tempest. This deck has like a bunch of different win conditions as well. It's not like playing Numerons where you only really have one win condition. So with this one, Leeching the Light is one of the win conditions, um, which is this card here. So you can kaiju them using one of these light monsters, and then once you activate one of these cards here, it'll basically give Performable Hippo and then your tokens, the damage or the amount of attack that these kaijus have, and then you can just pretty much attack them for OTK. Pretty easy OTK with Leeching the Light. Um, you can also deck them out really easily with Inferno Tempest. And then the other win condition for this deck is just to banish all the cards if they still have stuff and you have a Necro face in your hand. You can play this, it'll shuffle everything, um, all of your banished cards back into the deck. This card will gain 100 attack for that, and then you can just pretty much try to attack and OTK them like that. You can super poly them to clear the field, whatever you want to do. You can pretty much do it. Um, Pretty hard for them to deal with, and I just got a bunch of cards in here that make it easy. Um, Bunch of different cards to just make it easy to sacrifice their monsters, like Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. This card right here, just two machine monsters. So a lot of the times when people start going into the Hockey Fibrax play, and then they Aurora done. Um, to make Aurora done, you have to use two machines. If you got Super Poly while they're trying to do that, you can just make this really weak ass monster to just kind of troll them with it. So yeah, this card right here, Trishula Dragon, as long as they got three monsters on the field with different names, super poly their shit, and it'll piss them off. So yeah. Then we got our B Troopers. This is the pure B Troopers deck. This deck runs the best for me as far as B Troopers go. Super consistent. So far, I don't think I've bricked yet with this deck since I've been playing it. Got a ton of wins with it. I haven't bricked. I've lost a couple games, but I've won mostly all the games that I've played. I've only lost like two games playing this deck, and I've probably won like 14, 15 games with this deck. So I like it. It's pretty good deck. Pretty consistent. It's pretty easy to make plays with this deck only because most of the cards just kind of flow together really well. Then we got the Adventure Be True DPE deck, which this one, it's a little harder for me to play this one. I brick a lot more with this one, but this is kind of the deck that most people play when they play B Troopers, is the Adventure B Trooper deck. Um, it's a little more bricky for me, but it still does work, so yeah. And then finally, I got my totally awesome deck, which this deck uses three main win conditions. Uh, it uses the Toad as one of the main win conditions. It also uses Zeus and then Access Code Talker um, as the three ways to kind of win the game. Uh, Access Code Talker and Zeus are pretty much just ways to close out the games. Um, totally awesome is just a way to just frustrate your opponents and just make it hard for them to do anything against you. Crusadia Evermax is hard for them to deal with. It's a big boss monster that is hard to attack over, hard to kill. And then you also got Crooked Cook to just kind of stall your opponents out, and then you can go into Zeus. And Crooked Cook will have materials on it the way that you make it. As long as you don't use those materials to clear your field, go into Zeus, wipe the board, and then you can attack for game. Uses three main engines to bring out Toad: the Shark engine, the Frog engine, and then the Paleozoic engine. It also has like some floodgates, like Thunder Dragon Colossus, using like Nemesis Corridor, which can bring back Nemesis Corridor can put Toad back into your deck. You can also put Toad back onto the field with Hope Woven Dragon if it gets negated into the graveyard, and you can put Toad back into your graveyard if it gets banished with this card here. So, bunch of different ways to kind of play this deck. It's pretty fun deck to play as well. So yeah. So those are pretty much all the decks that I have. Um, Most fun one to play is kind of probably Arm Dragon, Thunder Dragon because of the Arm Dragon Thunder is probably because of the infinite negates. Um, Flowander Reeves because it's just like a trolling floodgate that's just hard to play through. Adventure Prank Kids because you just get to wipe the field. It's fun to watch your opponents try to do stuff while you negate and wipe their field over and over. Totally awesome. It's just fun negating your opponents, taking all of their shit and using it against them. As you guys can probably tell, I just like trolling people. Sword Soul Tinny is fun, just setting up a bunch of negates for them to try to play through. B Troopers, pretty much just B Troopers is just B Troopers. Mutants Heart is fun. Just watch your opponents try to also play through this engine as well, while constantly getting their stuff banished and Floodgate, all kind of stuff. Numeron, just funny watching them build crazy boards and you just pretty much wipe the field with them. It's also fun watching your opponent's main deck go to zero cards when you play something like this deck out, Inferno Tempest deck right here. So funny, just all these engines are just real fun to play. Um, Relinquished, I like taking my opponent's monsters, and then this card right here, Destiny Board. Um, this card also takes my opponent's monsters and uses it against them as well, using the cursed Necrofear. So yeah, bunch of fun decks to play. So those are all my decks. Hopefully you guys like them, and if you want to make some of them, make them, and let me know how y'all like them. So yeah.